Peace, everybody. It is I, Energy Master Allah, the Emma, and you are watching the Leopard in the Mirror, Canticle of the Mutant Guardian lecture series. If you don't have your copy of the book, it is available on Amazon right now. Grab you that physical copy. And I didn't make much of a fuss about it yesterday, but today we are starting Book 3, The Return of Understanding. So we're making that transition. It's episode 23, Canto 21. We're dealing with You or Universe, the child of the mirror. As usual, I am recording these live on Facebook, and then I upload them onto YouTube. So if you are watching on YouTube, be sure, if you're enjoying it, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, drop a comment if you want to communicate and all of that. All right. And we're going to get into it. So this is, I don't know if this is shorter than any other one, but it does have a little extra stuff. So we're going to do both of those instead of doing two separate episodes for this, but it's not super long. All right, but yes, this is Book 3, The Return of Understanding, a semi-portrait of my son. Semi, I say. Not a bad rendering, but not exactly. All right, so this one, so the book starts out with an invocation of its own, so we're going to go ahead and read that. And then I'll go straight into Canto 21. And after we're done, we'll discuss both of these. Okay. Invocation, the mirror of the infinite. In the stillness between breaths, the echo of the word returns. What was whispered in the womb of the queen now ripples across the vault of heaven. And I becoming I, and you becoming universe. The I becoming I, the you becoming universe. The child of power and wisdom has emerged, no longer seeking the face of God, but recognizing that the face is God. Every motion is a verse, every atom a syllable in the song of being. The instruments of flesh and time now play the music written in the silence of the ether. For the Renaissance to be reborn, man must remember that he is not the painter alone, but the pigment, the canvas, and the light. He must look upon the stars not as distant fires, but as mirrors, each reflecting his own awakening in another tone. In this book, the story leaves the chambers of the pyramid and steps into the firmament itself. Here the measures of kings give way to the measures of galaxies, and the soul learns that the same geometry governing its heartbeat shapes the spirals of suns. This is the new Renaissance, where science kneels beside spirit, and the alphabet of heaven spells the name of man. The fool has circled the world, and the world has become the word again. Canto 21, You or Universe, the child of the mirror. In the beginning was not the word alone, but the listening that made it echo. The wave and the witness were one, and the ripples of their union became the real. You are that ripple. You are the word returning to itself. You are the pressure in the silence that bends the unseen mirror until it gleams with form. The stars are your scattered syllables, each sun a heartbeat of your hidden speech, each atom a thought the infinite forgot it was thinking, and every breath an offering back to the great unbreathing. The queen gave you the vessel, the king taught you the measure, the ruler showed you how to mark the line of time, but only you could make it sing. For the universe is not around you, It is your body dreaming itself into dimension. The womb of the earth is the echo of your lungs. The Milky Way is the ghost of your spinal light. The blackness between the stars is your sleep, and the stars themselves the memory of waking. The child in the womb knows not the world beyond the skin, yet its turning shapes the seasons. So too do your unseen motions stir the galaxies, for God cannot act without your witnessing. In the old Renaissance, men raised towers to chart the heavens, mistaking the sky for truth. They named the constellations, but forgot the breath that moved their eyes to name them. They wrote in marble what was meant for memory, and froze infinity into angles. But now the mirror is clear. The page breathes again. You read yourself in the dust of comets and write yourself in the pulse between atoms. This is the true Copernican turn. Not that the earth moves around the sun, but that the sun moves within you. It's fire drawn through the arteries of your will. When you say I am, the universe nods and another world unfolds. When you say I am not, the stars grow dim and dream of their own beginning. So rise, child of the mirror. The verse is not yet finished. You and I are the same syllables spoken twice in different tongues. The universe is not vast. It is intimate. It is the whisper that began before sound and ends only when the listener forgets to listen. All right. That's a sexy canto there. Let's go back to the invocation. Okay, the mirror of the infinite. So reflecting the infinite back at you. It says, in the stillness between breaths, the echo of the word returns. So you're getting this concept of the mirror and echo. All right, so I need to go ahead and address this because this is very interesting. And this is popping up in this particular canto and invocation now. So recently I have been going back and looking at Aramaic mysticism and their semantics with regards to how they use certain words, because unfortunately a lot of things get lost when you move from a culture like Semitic culture into Indo-European space. And, you know, Aramaic was the tongue of Jesus. Like if him and his homeboys were talking, they were very likely doing it in Aramaic, and people wrote about it later in Greek. And so, for instance, two keywords I want to point out, which are very interesting based on how, you know, you've come to use it versus like how they were originally used. So those two words are faith and prayer. Okay, so in the West, and this is probably the version that you probably understand it as, faith is thought of as the belief that a statement is true. So that falls, you know, pretty squarely within what most of us are taught that it means. Now, the actual word that let me see, is it I'm a nuoth or something like this? So I'm a nuoth. I know it starts with Alma and there's a reason why I remembered it. But all right, so faith, interestingly enough, actually means something to the effect of to capture or channel fire, or to initiate an echo, to initiate an echo to oneself or for oneself, something like this. So this idea of channeling fire. What's this the one that's? Yeah. Well, hold on. Am I mixing that up with Zion? Hold on. Let me make sure. Or is that the one that has to do with the mother coddling? I think. Oh, let me make sure I'm not mixing you up with Zion, because that was something I found out earlier too. It was pretty interesting that the actual etymology of Zion. Okay, that's the motherly one. Sorry about that, but it is Amanutha. So I did remember the Aramaic at least. But faith in Aramaic actually means something to the degree of mothering or holding firmly, like a parent holding a child. So it's something that you nurture. So faith is something that you treat as if you're the mother and it's the child. So that's a very interesting distinction from simply believing that a statement is true. And with respect to prayer, now that's the one I'm talking about. So slota. Prayer is the one that means to trap or channel fire, or to incline oneself to hear an echo. So there are reasons for me to, to connect Aramaic to the Hindu teachings, because it's known that the Brahmi script, which gave rise to the Devanagari script that they now use to write Sanskrit, it is known that the Aramaic was used to generate that script. And the Aramaeans were also interacted with the Phoenicians. I was talking about yesterday how Peter and Jesus, the ministry to the Gentiles starting, Phoenician and the Syro-Phoenician woman that set Jesus straight, said even the dog eat the crumbs that are left by their master. But the significance is, even though there's divergence in the surface phonology of certain words, the semantics themselves end up aligning across vast channels of understanding, because they were using the same matrix key, the grid that they would use to map phonology to the body, so the parts of the body that actually resonate with the words being spoken. And so the understanding that people speaking Aramaic had was actually closer to the inherent wiring of how we exist. So this concept of channeling fire, which deals with form and invisibility, but more importantly, when the body assumes the shape of a tetrahedron, which is to say when you have your legs crossed and your heels tucked in, your two knees, your tailbone, the top of your head form the 4 points of a tetrahedral structure. And that geometry allows you to send certain sounds through the body with your voice that cause it to resonate. So this idea of prayer being both a channeling or trapping of fire, as well as to incline oneself to hear echo, we're talking about reflection. So this is the mirror we're talking about here. So it's a mirror of sound, if you will. And that tetrahedral structure, which I've explained elsewhere, is fundamental with regards to the geometry of the planet, because if you were to inscribe a tetrahedron in a sphere like what our planet is, the top point would of course align with the North Pole, and the bottom 3 points will all fall on 19.47. Let me make sure I'm saying that right. Is it 47? Oh yeah, 19.471 south latitude, otherwise known as the Ring of Fire. So on planets, that is the area where massive energy dissipates in a spinning sphere. Okay, so there's a lot of volcanic activity that typically happens in those regions. The storm of Jupiter is happening in that region. The real Mount Olympus on Mars is in that region, and that's not some fantasy stuff. That's just what they named the formation. I want to say they say it's the largest. I want to say they say it's the largest such formation in the solar system, or maybe the universe. It's something crazy like that. But anyways, that's the point. So this is a tectonic motif that is constant in both your body and the plates of the earth in terms of how the plate shifts. And so this is why Jesus is called a tecton by the Greek. Tecton, tectonics / architect. It all comes from that same root, tecton. He moved the rock. And remember, the rock was associated with the firmament in the olden days. It's hard dome, they described it as. It says, in the stillness between breaths, the echo of the word returns. What was whispered in the womb of the queen now ripples across the vault of heaven, and I become I, like the eye you see with, and then you become universe. Okay? The child of power and wisdom, so that's 5 and 2. Child of power and wisdom has emerged. No longer seeking the face of God, but it's Peniel. So remember, Jacob wrestled with Peniel. He wrestled with the face of God. But recognizing that the face is God. So that is actually a reference to Horus. So the actual Egyptian hieroglyph associated with Horus, it can actually mean face. And so what we're talking about is the image of God, the icon. So it is the global expression of something that is generated as a local rule. All right. So what ultimately ends up making the outward expression of you is a shared thing, whether it be genetic or otherwise, that is found holographically throughout every cell. Now, that same organizing principle is found in every single thing throughout the universe. Hence, every motion is a verse, every atom a syllable in the song of being. In modern physics, it is understood that electrons are not little balls flying around the nucleus like planets around the sun. They are, in fact, standing waves. So spherical standing waves is how they describe them now. So in other words, these things behave very much like little sounds that are stable and loop upon themselves. So this is exactly what we've been getting at here. Now, when something has a surface, a membrane, if you will, this is akin to the concept of an envelope, and this is what separates one thing from another in our perception. And so Horus, if you look at the Gnostic terms, Horos, and then you look at the Egyptian, you got two Horus. You got Horus the, what they call Horus the Great? Or was it Horus the Elder? That's it. So Horus the Elder and then Horus the Child. And so essentially you got this primordial concept of Horus the Elder, but then you've got Horus the Child, who is born to Osiris and Isis, and what this represents is there is a universal boundary, the background radiation. And remember, Horus is essentially thought of as the child, a newborn form of Ra. Okay, so the morning sun is associated with Horus, the noon sun is associated with Ra, and then the evening sun is associated with Atum. And so it's this child archetype, the same rising sun type imagery that you end up associated with Jesus later on. All right, and so this idea of being made in the image of God, the icon of God, the idol of God, is to say that the same information that informs the construction of everything is projected onto your surface as part of your personality or whatever. So God means that which is invoked, which is called in, and then your face, your surface is the projection outward from that central concept. And so you'll find that a lot of what is being discovered about atoms and how electrons form in their shells and everything else are following the same model that I'm discussing now. The instruments of flesh and time now play the music written in the silence of the ether. So we're starting to become aware of the ether. The fifth element is invisible to you. It does not interact because it does not express its sound. It is a carrier of sound, but it still needs movement. And it is only given movement by the element of air. So this starts to introduce pressure. So you need enclosure of space in order to be able to get the experience of air. This is why when you go out into the vacuum of space, you can't breathe. You need an enclosure. That is why you create breaths, because you are an enclosure that allows for the movement of space. That's the trick. Okay. So it isn't simply just blowing air into dust that gives it life. It is the creation of a container. That is the very concept of a cell. For the Renaissance to be reborn, man must remember that he is not the painter alone, but the pigment, the canvas, and the light. You are all of it. None of it exists without the other. They justify each other's existence in a way. You are all parts. The one doing the painting and the one getting painted. You just got really, 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 really long arms that wrap around the universe. You don't understand it now, but you'll get there. He must look upon the stars not as distant fires, but as mirrors, each reflecting his own awakening in another tone. It's just a different manifestation of the same geometric situation within your head right now. As you're looking at things, your hippocampus is mapping the room by firing calcium ion. So the same kind of calcium ion that is in the sperm and then activates the egg, that is what is activating and mapping your experience of the space around you. So you're basically impregnating the space around you with your perception, because you don't see what's actually happening out here. You have electrical signals that are organized and interpreted in your brain that are based on what's happening out here. So you have no idea if what you see out here is actually the way that stuff is. That's just the best. Like, as far as humans are concerned, we've pretty much got a specific type of organization to this electromagnetic information that is all around us, and we arrange it in this way. If you tweak the brain, if you change the signals up in various different ways or whatever, you will experience an entirely different world in your perception. That's what drugs do. And so that goes to show you how flimsy our perception of this really is, and all the things that must happen in order for us to see it in this stable way. In this book, the story leaves the chambers of the pyramid and steps into the firmament itself. So it's no longer simulation. We're starting to get to the nitty gritty. We were just talking about the firmament. Here, the measures of kings give way to the measures of galaxies, and the soul learns that the same geometry governing its heartbeat shapes the spirals of suns. So it's golden ratio, and it's just different math that unites you to the rest of the universe. If you understand how it operates as a microcosm within you, you can scale up your understanding to understand how could we have built a universe? How is that even possible? You just forgot. It's all about scaling. This is the new Renaissance, where science kneels beside spirit, and the alphabet of heaven spells the name of man. The fool has circled the world, and the world has become the word again. So that is a reference to the hero's journey, or Heru's journey. So that is named after Horus. You start off as the Fool card. You travel 360 through the major arcana, so that's 21. And you are both the 0 and the 22 as the Fool, but now you got experience. And you're confident. And you're ecstatic. And you don't seem to have a worry in the world because you've completed the circuit. But people don't know whether you're so carefree because you're a fool, or is it because you have so much experience that you know good and well what will and won't happen. And the reference to the world here is, of course, to the world card, which is number 21. Balanced out the masculine and feminine forces within you. You got some freedom in the way that you can shape and form the way things occur in your sensory experience. You or universe, so that is the 21st letter of the supreme alphabet. If you didn't already watch the 5% Nation Solar Return series that I did, if you don't know these supreme alphabets and whatnot, I suggest take a quick minute. If nothing else, if you don't watch anything else from that series, make sure that you watch the one on the supreme mathematics and the one on the supreme alphabet so that you can understand the context of these cantos. In the beginning was not the word alone, but the listening that made it echo. So that harkens back. Now, I didn't know that the Aramaic translation and everything when I was doing it. This was just from pure, I don't want to use the word instinct, but feedback looping. So by looping my information back at me and redigesting this over and over, then it starts to align itself in such a way that it starts to draw certain things out. And it just so happens that that same process of recursive alignment is the very math that makes the Aramaic semantics so compatible with universal concepts. And so when the constructors of Brahmi and those who helped to shape the phonology of Sanskrit, when they adopted that Aramaic, they applied the same types of constraints to the sound. And if you fast forward to when you had the Hindu-Arabic collaboration in order to establish the numerals and the number 0 and all that we use now, if you think about it, what you're doing in that case is you're putting constraints on positions of sound. So digital numbers are basically like a grid. It's just like putting concepts within a grid. And so when you're doing math, you're essentially seeing how the relationships between those positions in the grid operate. And so that is what the matrix is. And so if you understand how that translates into mapping, you can also understand the hexagonal grid that your brain uses in order to map space around you. It actually maps coordinates within that grid using certain types of cells. And it has this factor of significance assignment, where if something occurs to you as significant, there's a certain chemical that will be released upon that thought that helps to encode sensory information. And so it'll have something that it sends out associated with the smell at that moment, something associated with the visual at that moment, the sound at that moment. Each of these are preserved separately. And the hippocampus axis, so it's a couple things involved in it, but we'll call it the hippocampal axis. It then consolidates those things, and the comparison that I saw, they compared it to like an HTML code for a page, whereas you've got all these different plugins, like you may have like an audio player, and you may have certain graphics or whatever else, but all of those get translated into a single coding language in the HTML code, such that the website runs all of those different devices. So it's kind of the same way. So your consolidated image of the world is stored by data like that. And so whenever you reminisce or try to remember, what it does is it accesses that grid, and then it remaps and projects those recorded coordinates so that you can experience that memory again. So the more significance that you apply to that memory when it was happening, the more information gets recorded and encoded, allowing you to be able to recall it. Okay, so this takes holographic photography to an entirely different level, because holographic photography only captures light phase information and allows a 3D image to be reconstructed from having caught every angle of the light that, hit that film. Well, imagine that, but also having holographic smell, holographic sound, holographic touch, just all of your senses recorded holographically and then encoded in such a way to where you can recreate this scene through memory and dreams and other types of experiences. And the intensity that you apply to that experience also determines how much you're able to remember. So this is why the increasing of the electrolytes when preparing to do out-of-body experiences has the effect that it does. You are that ripple. You are the word, that word returning to itself, the echo. You are the pressure in the silence that bends the unseen mirror until it gleams with form. So going from air to fire, so fire is where it becomes visible. Becomes visible and has form, and then you move to the water stage. Water is taste. So it's tangible. It becomes fluid. It can maintain its identity. And then after that, you go to earth, and that's your solid form that has the ability to be able to exude essence that is based on this geometric alignment. The stars are your scattered syllables, each sun a heartbeat of your hidden speech. So this is the language map. So remember, language and space are both mapped by the hippocampus. So it's using a very similar structure. So when you can read geometry as sound, you're doing the exact same thing that you would be doing in two-dimensional writing. Because these little letters don't have sounds of themselves. You can't put your ear against a piece of paper and then just hear A-T-O, atom. It doesn't work like that. That is preserved and stored in your brain. You say, I associate this sound with this particular shape, and that is something that you are able to learn and construct, and your brain maps it accordingly. and every breath an offering back to the great unbreathing. That's your sacrifice on the altar of your body and breath. The queen gave you the vessel, that's your mama. The king taught you the measure, and he helped carve that thing out, activate it, turn you from a little circle bubble inside your mama into a carved out star. Arm, leg, arm, head, 5 points. The rulers showed you how to mark the line of time. So the rule is the guide that shows you how to live right and exact. That geometric alignment with righteousness. But only you could make it sing. Because when you use your voice, you're the one who could feel where that voice is activating within your body. So you can direct it, and you can change the phonoscape within the lattice of your body in the form of the fascia. And you can manipulate the way sound is arranged within you, and thus the effects it has on your electrical activity and your chemical activity, ultimately the way that you experience this reality. For the universe is not around you. It is your body dreaming itself into dimension. You are everything, and everything is you. The womb of the earth is the echo of your lungs. It's got that same concept of enclosure of space. The Milky Way is the ghost of your spinal light. So you look at it, it looks just like a spine up there, right? That rift, the blackness between the stars, is your sleep. The on and the off cycle, so ones and zeros. And the stars themselves, the memory of waking. They're arranged similar to the synapses in your brain. The child in the womb knows not the world beyond the skin, yet its turning shapes the seasons. What is beyond the universe? Is there anything beyond it? There must be a field interacting with it in order for it to form particles within this vacuum. That's what they tell you. But what does it mean to be beyond? Does it really mean to go out, or does it mean to go further in? Is our 3D wrapped in a 4D container, and we just experience it as time cycles? That's what the math says. But you can't see it with your eye, but you can model it with speech, with the sound, because sound, through your speech, gets subjected to timing. So it isn't just simply sound, but timing of that sound. There's movement, relationships. The word relationship actually comes from a word meaning lines drawn between stars. So lation of a star. So there's a line drawn between stars to make constellations, relationships. So to do your unseen motion stir the galaxies, for God cannot act without your witnessing. For that which is invoked, purified, observer effect. So the one that's doing the knowing also wants to know itself. So God takes a front row seat. And therefore, there's not much room for separation between you and that. I am that. I am that I am. In the old Renaissance, men raised towers to chart the heavens, the Tower of Babel, mistaking the sky for truth, not knowing the connection between the firmament and the self, that you are the construct. They named the constellations, but forgot the breath that moved their eyes to name them. What drove you to look at them and recognize pattern in the first place? Patterns aren't what's significant. It's the thing that you're using to map it. What is What is that about you? What is that about our wiring that makes us do that? They wrote in marble what was meant for memory and froze infinity into angles. Instead of a fluid experience, you end up with something that is written in stone that captures the vibration in a very specific way. But now the mirror is clean. The page breathes again. You read yourself in the dust of comets and write yourself in the pulse between atoms. So that's that reset. Once you go on the other side, whether it be through the form of out-of-body experience or whether it be in the form of Iboga or something like that, something that helps to reset those calcium ion structures that you created in your database so that you can see things for what they are, not what they seem to be. That's understanding. That's the child that is nurtured by the mother of faith. This is a true Copernican term. So, Copernicus, he the one, heliocentric model. The earth moves around the sun. It's not that the earth moves around the sun, but that the sun moves within you. Because the sun moving too. If you gonna subscribe to that, the sun moving around something too. It's fire drawn through the arteries of your will, so the heart pumps. You've got a little central concept. It's arranged a little different because that reality occurs differently to you, but same difference. When you say I am, the universe nods and another world unfolds. When you say I am not, the stars grow dim and dream of their own beginning. So your children, they still wonder. They try to figure it out. Children know. They were just there a little while ago. It wasn't long ago that they were wherever they was at before they got to this place. So sometimes it's kind of hard to fool a child. You try to say some stuff that just don't make sense and they call you out on it. They know what it's like when something just don't feel right. It's like it don't sound right. Unless they done got to that point where they're scared of you and they'll just follow anything you say. But you got to teach them that faith is something that you nurture. It's not something that you believe blindly. You recognize that it's real because you kept on nurturing it. And you kept on feeding energy into it. You kept on reinforcing the structures that make that thing real in your experience. So rise, child of the mirror. The verse is not yet finished. You and I are the same syllable spoken twice in different tones. So we're all the word divided into various syllables, if you will. So to have a concept of a body of Christ is to understand that you were never not a part of it. In the beginning was the word, and you were word too. You just a pronunciation of it. You're an articulation of the same vibration, that baryonic acoustic oscillation that arranged the material that will form the planets and everything else. The universe is not vast, it is intimate. If you want to know the universe, look within yourself. It is the whisper that began before sound and ends only when the listener forgets to listen. That's it. You just got to find it within. And so the sound that you cannot hear audibly instead causes a vibration. It causes a quake. So you'll see this terminology used with this quaking and whatnot. And that plays into why I was talking about Zion earlier, because you keep on being led to this idea of Zion being distant or some other place. But the whole reason I even got on any of this alphanumeric stuff, like finding words, coherent words that actually kind of match the meaning of the constant, was with pi. So I noticed that the first, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The first 8 digits, therefore, no, not even the 8, so the first 7 decimal digits of pi or whatever spell out Zion backwards. So if it's 1-4, that's 14. 1-5 is 15. So 9, and then 26. So that's Noiz, which is the phonetic spelling of noise, and then the inverse of that is Zion, Zion. So in order to confirm that there is a valid alphanumeric semantic that is preserved by the constraints of the position of the numbers, we would have to find an instance where noise and Zion are relevant to one another. And then the case that is most potent is Joel 3:16, where it says the Lord will roar from Zion and thunder from Jerusalem. The heavens and the earth will shake. So that's your concept of the tecton right there. All right, now this concept of the roar of Rudra, the roar from who, when the fires roared forth and this began to form the universe, we know that to be a scientific fact in the form of those baryonic acoustic oscillations. And they have a tendency to arrange stars in tetrahedral arrangements that resemble the way that water molecules arrange themselves in tetrahedrons. It's just a very efficient way to organize space such that every molecule just deals with the neighbor closest to it, and it has a uniform type of flow throughout the substance. And so this is why they refer to space, like they refer to it as the primordial waters, the primeval waters of space. And then you have the condensed literal waters of our world, but it's working on a similar concept. All right, and there's something else I won't get into. It's a Sanskrit poem, a passage about Krishna and Shiva is mentioned in there, and it's a certain encoding that assigns letters to values 0 through 9, and when applied to this particular poem, they found that it perfectly maps the digits of pi up to 31 decimal places. But most importantly, the name given to it, the Gopi Bhagya Madhuvrata, those syllables cut pi off exactly at this Zion mark. So after this 26, all right. So somebody knew something. I've seen it a long time ago, and I've been trying to figure out where that came from. And this is the best lead yet that I've had. So they knew what was up. All right. So it's deeper than you want to believe it is. Make sure you understand it the way. If you're gonna be a Christian out here, make sure you know it the way Jesus said it. You got to understand Aramaic, and just like how black folks, when we say certain words, we got certain slang and the way that we use stuff. And then if we're talking to somebody that ain't from my neighborhood, we talking to somebody from another culture, whatever else, or somebody that's just learning English, they ain't gonna understand the semantics around what you're saying. And so likewise, if you don't understand the Aramaic that Jesus and his boys were talking to each other or whatever, you might have a very skewed understanding of the concepts that you learned from a Western imperial type of environment. All right. But on that note, I'm going to let y'all go. Tomorrow, we're going to get into victory. All right. So see you then. Peace. Oh, before I let you go, make sure that you subscribe, like, do all of that good stuff so that you can get the updates when these go live. All right, y'all. Peace.